science uses to better understand the natural world. Isn't that what that article is saying?
Yes.
And it gives you concrete ways that a science teacher can use math to describe what is happening in the science. So if you look on the table on page 232, or what is it?
The patterns in the natural world, that's what science is looking for, patterns in the natural world.
See, that would be this.
Mhm.
Yeah, page 232. Okay, how do you quantify the real world? Well, they give 4 different things that a science teacher could use math to quantify the real world using. So identifying variables, counting objects, estimating number and size, measuring all sorts of things using standard and non-standard units. And it goes down right there. How would you explain the visual on page 233? What does that tell you? Without reading anything, looking at that visual, what does that tell you?
Everything's integrated with everything. Can work together.
Okay, so in quantifying the real world, that's also connected to using patterns, also connected to operating numerical data and organizing data. Okay, so basically, that table was transferred into a picture. Okay.
Yes. I'll simplify it a little bit.
Part of my doctoral research, I had to justify the use of combining math and science together, and one of the justifications was that science needs math in order to actually understand what's happening in science. And the more complicated the science is, the more complicated the math is. And in separating them is disadvantageous because of that.
Science, the higher the grade level in science, the more science is dependent upon math. I am hearing some districts around here moving biology to the 11th grade because they don't want kids taking too many STAR tests, I guess as freshmen or sophomores. And my question is then, what sciences do they take before then? Chemistry, you need to be concurrently at minimum enrolled in Algebra 2. They could take IPC along with Algebra 1 in the 9th grade.
But IPC, they don't offer anymore.
Yes, they do.
Well, not for,
Yes. No. It's in fact it can be taken in the STEM endorsement. It's back in there.
okay.
I mean, what I testified to was that students who lack the math skills, it gives them time to gain those math skills in IPC so they're successful in chemistry and physics in case, they end up going that way, which very few of them will apparently now, unless they want to go to college, unless the state makes the colleges change their entrance requirements. But so the question is, what are the administrators thinking the sciences they're going to take? Any of the other sciences need the math. So I haven't gotten an answer.
Well, especially physics, oh gosh.
Oh yeah, well, chemistry too. I mean, logs and, you need Algebra 2, you need for logs and chemistry. So the higher it is, the more dependent it is on math. Early science was naturalist, which means they described as well as they could until they got the math that enabled them to better identify the patterns. And on that little chart, I wrote, opposite explaining, I wrote hypothesis. That's the hypothesis that you're testing, is the explanation for that pattern. And then predicting is based on the pattern. And if you look at weather models, which ones are better predictors?
Page 232 and 233 now. You're looking at Chapter 4 in Elementary and Middle School Mathematics, page 39. And you're going to read through that article and pull out the pros and cons from that. And that came from this book right here. Excellent book, your teacher should have this book. Very well written and full of awesome resources. Elementary and middle school mathematics, Bangor.
And he has them broken out too. He has one that's 5 through 8, one that's K2, I think, and then another one. That was a denser reading.
It's the right page, it's the value. You have two copies of mine for some.
There you go.
So then we're thinking about the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm. Yes, in terms of those ideas.
So like what prior skills are needed for the teachers to teach with this kind of problem solving model, or what do you mean?
No, this would be all student.
Are we looking at the trapezoid problem or?
Yeah, well, in terms of the problem-based learning, there were 3 examples there. You had the number line, then you had the addition piece there, and then you had the trapezoid thing. Pick one of those. And I found the other.
Students to think outside the box, so to speak, to create in their minds methodologies to attack a problem so that they're more open-minded to doing other problems when they appear.
Can
Some
that
of
be
these I
learned
don't
on the
feel-
fly?
Pardon, say again?
Can that be learned on the fly?
Well, and that's a concern that I have. I don't know that they're giving them enough direction to find an answer. What I see for a couple of them anyway, it looks like there's gonna be more frustration than there is support in them being excited about finding a problem.
Ambiguity?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's my greatest concern in this, is what am I supposed to do? What am I doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it this way? Because I don't think that there's enough prior knowledge to be able to attack some of these problems.
Well, I mean, I disagree, because if you go into a second grade classroom, the hundreds chart's gonna be on the wall, there's gonna be a number line on, there's a lot of resources that the kids have. Like, I don't think a teacher gives this to a kid to do without saying, use your resources. So if you look at the problem, you're hoping the teacher has enough sense to do the problem solving when the kids have enough prior knowledge. Now, like if you're a second grade teacher and this is how you wanna introduce adding two digit numbers, just to see where the kids are, you might have some frustration, but you might not, because kids are intrepid and, again, they know how to use that hundreds chart pretty easily to actually just do it on the hundreds chart, I guess.
Except that you have a whole range of kids, and for these, definitely you're gonna have that group that's gonna be intrepid and gonna search it out and figure it out, and, because they have to. But you're still gonna have another group that is not as motivated, don't have the need to find out, reach a block and that's where they stop instead of pushing through it.
So the kids are doing this by themselves?
Hard to know.
Okay, couple of questions. So, we're talking about hypothetical classroom situations. Also add into there, what would your best teacher do to resolve that concern?
Okay, now there's a true variable, because I have some teachers who wouldn't have the 100 chart, the line on the board, they wouldn't have the prep work done, the clues kind of planted so the kids could look around and search and see. I have teachers like that, whereas I have other teachers who are incredible at that. See, that's where you're coming from. But they would be prepared, they would have clues, they would be there to give them hints, they would
But in my
do
opinion,
those things.
teacher A wouldn't even do this.
Probably true.
Teacher A wouldn't even give them this kind of problem to do, I think,
Maybe
and
that's
so.
true.
They would shy away from it.
Yeah, so I think when we're looking at this, if we just looked at, if we look at just the task itself, is this a good, what are the pros of this math task itself, on any of these math tasks? Kids are gonna struggle, even good students are gonna struggle to put 11/8 on the number line.
That's true.
Because GT kids will tell you right away, 11/8, you can't even draw that. When they get to 7th grade, they have forgotten so much of their basic fraction concepts, because they've manipulated them so many different ways that they,
But
so,
why have they forgotten?
because they haven't drawn pictures in years,
It's very
especially.
abstract.
And because their teacher said, oh, these kids don't need to draw pictures,
Right.
because they could do the problem so quickly. So then if you're the teacher and you say, okay, well, let's just start out by, how would you draw 11/8? Because I've done this problem with my middle school students, because I have this book. And they told me, Miss Brand, we cannot do this problem, because you cannot have 11/8. You cannot have a bigger number on the top. And I said, I'm telling you right now, you can do it, and you can draw 11/8, and so I'm gonna ask you to go back to 3rd grade and 4th grade when I was your teacher, and, because it was my former students I was teaching, I said, I want you to go back, and how can you draw 11/8? And you're gonna have to think about everything you know about fractions. So that's all I had to do to get everybody started, and so are these worthwhile mathematical tasks? Yes, they are. They build numeracy. I didn't make my kids do them by themselves, but I could have. I mean, I guess Vanderwall's not telling you, do you use this as an assessment, or do you just use it as a problem-solving challenge?
Okay, but let me interject. What you did just now, what you did is you interjected into the problem clues. You said, yes, you can, and you need to go back at this, you need to draw pictures, you gave them a
Take it back
whole
to
bunch
third
of
grade.
clues that's gonna assist them.
But that's what
in coming
Vanderwall
with the
says to do. That's what Vanderwall says, to ask facilitating
Where did you
questions.
say that in here? You didn't.
Okay, so,
That's a concern.
that would be, how do you help them with the ambiguity? You give them a heuristic, some sort of problem-solving technique. Well, when I run across the problem, how do I solve it? What do I do first?
But see, you have some teachers like this who automatically know that that's what you have to do and need to do, and God, they're outstanding teachers. But not all of your teachers are that on top of it, they just aren't. Okay, here's a problem, do it, and they go and maybe look and evaluate, but they're not doing what she did, which was, guys, yes, you can draw this, remember back here, past knowledge, blah, blah. And what she's doing is she's shepherding them, she's directing them, and wow, yeah, but she's an inspired teacher and it helps. Not all
Okay,
teachers
so
are
how
like
do
But I don't think
All
I
of
was
your
an inspired
teachers like
teacher, I
Kim.
was a teacher who read this book.
Well, no, you're an inspired
That
teacher.
might make you an inspired teacher.
But again, I think, that's our
Dr. West
task.
is volunteering to get a DNA sample and we'll just clone you. How's that?
There you
Okay.
go, accept.
Teachers must know what prior teaks their students are supposed to have.
Right.
That will be done with your teachers, maybe not today, but tomorrow in the math instruction. They're gonna go back and look at their prior teaks. Even my star student, Margaret, said to me yesterday, 8th grade science, said, I really need to go back and look at the 7th and 8th grade teaks.
But how many teachers are gonna do that?
How many principals are gonna require them to do that?
And here's where this team planning comes into play. That's what they're supposed to be, when teachers are doing lesson planning, they're supposed to be saying, what do my kids need to know? Because the biggest problem I had this year was that my 6th grade teachers, very willingly and able, working 12-hour days, wanted to teach that 6th grade lesson, but they forgot that, listen, what is it that they have to know before you start? And then they all say, well, they didn't know it. Okay, so then what do you do? What is your job? Because 50% of the kids are gonna forget that they learned it the year before, and that has to be accounted for in your lesson plans. And so it's in the lesson planning process that you do that. And I think in PLCs, like, you know, that's where Dr. Browning, you know, was such a inspiration to our group of math teachers, because we said, we don't know how to teach this way in 7th grade math. And so she said, well, would y'all be willing to come on Saturdays? And my whole department, we came 7 or 8 Saturdays for half a day, just learning how to teach proportions with Cuisenaire rods, learning how to teach adding and subtracting integers with algebra tiles, you know, all those things, you know, came as a department. We just, you know, collectively agreed because our principal was leading us that way and Dr. Browning was leading us that way.
Jen?
So, in the lesson plan format that your teachers are going to get, that you might have a copy of, well, you will get a copy of it if you don't, but
Jen will send you that.
I will send it to you. But, it asks, in the science and math planning, it says prerequisite knowledge. And,
Which would be the TEKS plus anything else that they
Yes.
might know.
but when your teachers say, well, I don't have a copy of the blah, blah, blah TEKS, in their books that they got, the BSLs, the benchmarks for science literacy, NSTA does a great job of saying, you know, these are
All the
things,
national standards.
these are the things that your kids need to know. So if they don't have a copy handy of the grade level before TEKS, they
Yeah.
have those books,
They're online.
and they're online. And
Well, and
yeah, I
Lead
mean, but-
Forward even puts them
Okay.
together for
They
you for
scaffold them.
free. They put them all together so that you can see them. I mean, it's so
But I'll-
easy.
I'll tell
Has
you,
that been done with all the new teaks that they're now
They're
introducing?
Yes.
updated.
For
Because
math,
that's
yes.
New
really
math.
what we're gonna need to introduce.
Now,
but the
in your
beer,
notebooks, didn't you get a bunch of TEKS?
Yes, I did, I saw those.
But I think what
Yes.
Jen's saying is you should always look at the national standards, not just the previous grade level TEKS, but the national standards to see what they should to know. Just by reading the national standards, you can learn the math or learn the science.
there's also a book that your teachers don't get that's amazing. It's about this big. And there's 3 of them, and it's the
Atlas.
Atlas, the science
They're
Science.
only
Atlas.
$10,000 a piece.
Well, they're not that expensive, and it would probably be
How
good
much are
for
they?
you guys to get 1 set,
To share.
maybe 2.
We'll bring a sample in.
But they're amazing because there are flow charts that anybody could read.
Updated.
No,
Well,
they're not they're science. There's
Oh,
national standards, so they're not
because
TEKS.
they're talking science, not
Right,
math
but
at
that's,
this point.
that's what you have to do as a teacher, is you have to wrestle with those things intellectually to understand them. It's not as good to hand them a chart that's done for them, but it's less time consuming. But unless they're really willing to wrestle with that chart to understand it, it's not gonna make sense. But I wanna go back to before that. Principals should hold teachers accountable for knowing what those prior knowledge are in those lesson plans. And if I go into a classroom and I see that students are not understanding, then my question to the teacher after the debriefing, why didn't you stop what you were doing? It was obvious that they didn't understand. You don't just march through the lesson because we're in there. You do whatever those students need. But you should know what they don't know before that lesson. You do that with pre-test, you do it with questioning. I mean, there's a lot of ways to know what they don't know. But the other thing is, we have teachers in this project who are telling me that teachers from prior grade levels are not teaching the TEKS. They're not doing the
No,
40%
because it's
hands-on.
absolutely true.
That's a principal's job, and it's also the teacher's job for peer pressure to go back in and say, you're not teaching, whatever, and when they get to this grade level, they haven't had that prior knowledge.
But see, that's why I was saying 5th grade is so important, because that's where there's a divide. You go K through 5, and then there are a lot of changes. You go into middle school at 6, and 5 has a different methodology of how to teach it, different rules that they're using that we have to unteach and reteach a whole new set because we haven't gotten together and said blah, blah, blah.
I
and
don't
it's-
see that science should be taught any different in 5th grade than 6th
It's
grade or
it's
12th
mostly
grade.
math, all the
It's math
tricks
I'm
and
talking about,
shortcuts.
really.
But
It's not science.
here's a great thing, the middle school principals in Comel, were fed up, and I feel their pain, because when I went into, as an elementary administrator, I was so frustrated. They presented to elementary principals the untruths that are being taught in lower level math. And so what they did is they asked for the elementary principals to be looking for those untruths, because it's true, and I just will use my own personal example of kids telling me, you can never divide a smaller number by a bigger number, and then I said, you can. Well, my fourth grade teacher said no, or my third grade Miss so-and-so said no, and you know, in elementary school, that teacher is a goddess, and she knows everything, and to unlearn, to have them unlearn, but the elementary teacher is telling it out of the goodness of her heart to make it easier for the kid to set the problem up correctly, but she's teaching an untruth, and so they had the 6 untruths that do you remember that, Denise, were you in there when Sean and Chris and Mike all presented, or no, actually it was just Chris and Sean, and they presented the untruths that are being taught in elementary school math that middle school teachers are asking to please stop. And then what that started was vertical alignment meetings, you know, between 6th and 5th and 4th, and you know, I mean, I just think it's important, and that's where we were talking about, the best science teachers that I've observed are the ones that have a science background upper level, because then they don't teach untruths, they know what's coming forward. So I guess it's just making sure our elementary math teachers understand.
Higher math.
Okay, we're gonna run out of time here, and
Okay, wait a
we're
minute, I need
identifying
to-
all the problems, we're not doing anything about it. And so I'm gonna ask you to do something about it. You and your partner come up with a faculty meeting, professional development, right now, to fix this problem.
Well, you already hit on part of the solution. Well, is to be clear about what the countries are.
Right.
And to require a meeting with the.
Okay, you only have an hour in your faculty meeting.
Elementary.
How are you gonna do it? You got 2 minutes to come up with a plan,
And do
you
it at
and
an
your partner.
administrative level. And then get your teachers involved and share at a vertical level, okay, you know, this is what the administrators have said, this is how you can help us. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe have a strategy meeting that says, okay, if you would do it this way, why can't you? Well, you can't because of this. Well, could you do it this way? No, that could work. Where they really sit down and they really go head to head and have a discussion to see, well, this is why we use it this way, because otherwise they're.
First faculty meeting.
Yes, they take the STAR test.
They take the start.
They take the third grade STAR test and the 8th grade STAR test, so they see where they're going and where they're headed, where it starts and where it ends.
Did you hear what she said? The first faculty meeting, she makes it take the STAR test.
No, that's what I'm saying.
How long is it gonna take them to take that test?
I don't know, you might do it, I think, you could break it up.
Okay, you got about 30 seconds, come up with a plan here, be prepared to present.
We'll start with that other one, where what we'll do is start with the administrators,
Yes.
have an interaction between them, what their
And
needs
do
are.
it, doing contracts with
Right.
elementary to present the problems and then say, here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're going to do. To start tests.
And then what we're gonna do is get teachers together, have a strategy meeting. To hammer out what changes
In isolation.
are gonna support each other in doing what needs to be done.
And they teach it all. And then they also.
You guys teach teachers how to teach this problem.
No, they do have time. Some of them are not
Dr. Wissa,
organized.
how many math methods courses does an elementary teacher take? I took only one when
I don't
I
know, I'd have to look it up, I know they take at least one,
Okay.
they only take one science.
was, yeah, I think only one math also.
I've got an activity I want to do before lunch, and we're gonna run out of time, so, let's continue here. Okay, what's your idea?
Junior high, we're gonna have a joint meeting and just talk about the vertical alignment together and begin with the end in mind. And we're only gonna assume the 8th grade test is the end for now, because we can't also ask high school math teachers to come in.
Okay. What happened to the other idea? Make them take the test.
Well, what we're gonna do is the first meeting is gonna be with the administrators.
Oh,
And
okay.
what they're gonna do is make a determination, okay, what are the needs? Once the needs have been determined and identified, then what you're gonna do is get the teachers then to have a strategy meeting where they get together. So this is the second meeting.
And you're hoping they come up with, we should
Well,
probably
that's
take the
gonna
test.
be their
Okay.
goal. They're gonna be required to sit down and duke it out. Okay,
Come up with a
how can we
plan.
support you in this? And this is what our need is. Why is there a need? Let's examine this and have them really, search it out, look at it, and come up with some solutions. This is what's gonna help us most, great, but this doesn't work this way, well, it could work this way. Have them really come up with genuine solutions on how they can be supportive of middle school, how middle school can be supportive of lower level grades.
Okay, awesome, cool.
I'm not trying to fix it, but it's a start.
Okay,
We're gonna take it back a little bit. I agree with her, is that at the faculty meeting, you cannot fix this,
That's true.
but you can bring awareness. And basically is at this faculty meeting.
oh, wait. What should happen at faculty meeting if you're not fixing problems?
It's updates. Updates.
But mine's
You
ongoing.
cannot fix things in faculty meetings.
Not,
I would say that's the best place to fix them.
In-service is the best place to fix them.
Okay,
Embedded daily professional development is the best way to fix them.
Oh,
In
wow.
department planning, in conversations, in walkthroughs.
okay, keep going.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so what we would say is at this faculty meeting, you need to bring the resources that you use to help you do vertical alignment, to do your lesson plans. Because from that, when you see your teachers bring what they bring, then you're really assessing is that, hey, do you realize that my teachers, and this is what I'm talking about experience, don't even know what's on the star. And if you don't know what's on the star, how can you be planning effectively? Or if you don't know your TEKs, okay? So I think right there in itself says that, hey, maybe some teachers, hey, I have the resources, but then other people say, hey, yeah, I'm really just taking this trip, and I don't even have the right math.
Well, and if you think about the elementary math teachers, how many of you are departmentalized in elementary, 4th and 5th grade? And you only have one math teacher, that person plans all alone. They are the end all be all. If they don't have a partner or somebody to pair up with, and just to hear what other people, see what other resources people have. That's what training is doing, like giving science teachers and math teachers, hey, these are some good books for them to use. And then all of a sudden somebody says, oh my gosh, I need to get that book, that's awesome.
Yes, okay, cool. So you would have them bring the resources and evaluate what they're actually using.
I think
Okay, how about y'all?
We've come up with, as we're talking, I think a more effective way would be taking a strand, I'm thinking of my own campus here. Taking a strand, probability and statistics is very low on my campus. Taking that strand and going, okay, here's, pulling it out, scaffolding it, and talking about what are you doing in that faculty meeting. This is, of course, just a start. 5th grade, what are you doing? 1st grade, how do you start it? And then having them talk about it, model it, and then come back again and revisit. But I think it's taking each strand, because showing that this is a weakness on our campus for our students. Is it really students, or is it the teacher's ability to teach that strand?
Okay, so certainly taking everything all at once in a faculty meeting won't work. So reduce it down to something that's manageable, one strand. Let's look at this one thing. Okay, how about y'all? Okay, all y'all.
All y'all. That's unique to Texas first. We kind of brainstormed, and we were gonna invite the middle school to our staff development meeting, because we don't have faculty meetings, we do all of that email.
Okay.
And online, every time we get together.
So it's always
a
the staff development
Yes,
meeting.
that's staff
Cool.
development. So, and then each grade level is responsible for bringing one food item. And they have to keep track of what the quantity is that they brought, how much it cost, and the total, all that kind of stuff. So then we'll gather the data for that as we're eating and chatting, and then we'll sit in vertical teams. Like you can put that together, organized, so they can know which table to sit at, and then you do the, get to know each other, that kind of stuff. Then you, go through and you collect your data and you look at it, and then you, in the vertical team, then you look at, okay, what TEKs are taught at kindergarten with what we just did, what TEKs are taught at first grade, second grade, third grade, what happened in seventh grade that kindergarten is doing as well, so that they get a chance to see it. Then, with just that one little piece of the activity, then you see what TEK that was, and then, okay, let's look at now, where are the other places that we need to pay attention to?
Okay, hang on, I'm getting confused. So they bring in a food item, what does that have to do with TEKs?
Well, because they're gonna do the quantification, if it's math, that's one of the things they can look at, but if it's also nutritious food, then that's some of the health stuff. They're gonna talk about, okay, what TEKs are involved in what we just did.
With the food,
Yes.
okay, got it,
Yes.
okay.
So then then they'll look at that and figure out, oh, well, what Mrs. Smith does in kindergarten makes a difference with what seventh grade does too.
Okay.
And then you plan your schedule about how you're gonna continue the discussions and activities that go with it, but,
It's gotta be an ongoing fix, it's not, one meeting's not
Right.
gonna, because you're gonna have more than one area that's gonna need attention.
But one of the
Break
things
that
that
in.
I see happening there is some modeling going on. Let's do something concrete and add the abstract to it. Cool. Okay, awesome. We were supposed to have looked at page 211 to 213. I'm gonna let you look at that. It's in your binders. It's a science lesson about whales and there's several other things. And we could have done a little bit more comparison there. But we're running behind schedule, so we're gonna hurry up here. Okay, in this big book,
Ben, could I say one thing about the TEKs?
sure.
They're in science very misunderstood. Teachers misinterpret them. That's why they need to go to the national standards that Jim was talking about. For example, the sixth grade has the basis for the periodic table, but you do not teach a periodic table until the eighth grade in the TEKs.
Can you say that one more time?
For teachers to understand the science TEKs, because they're written in short phrases, they must go to the national standards, which explains the age appropriateness for the concepts, so the teachers will better understand what the TEKs mean and they don't misinterpret. And the example that I gave, that in sixth grade, it's the foundation for understanding chemicals like the geology tests of luster and all of those. That's in sixth grade. And it sets the stage, elements and compounds, sets the stage then for the eighth grade for them to understand this very complex summary, which is a periodic table. So they do not teach a periodic table sixth grade.
I think, about a decade ago, it was something like only 10% of their teachers know their content area. And it's not that they didn't know the knowledge, but they didn't know when to teach it.
Or they go way too far or not far
So we
enough.
have third grade teachers teaching sixth grade material and vice versa. It's
And
just
look at what my
scary.
kids are doing, they're doing sixth grade math. Well,
Yeah, I have a
the
great
third grade
story
math
for
that you're
that,
supposed to be
too.
teaching. Can they do that?
Okay,
It's
yeah,
like-
we can bring up all sorts of anecdotes, and, right here, this book right here, in 2007, so, what is that? 2, 3, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Is that the inquiry one?
Okay,
That's the
7 years
Oh, the
ago,
Van der Waals.
this is what they're saying. And I can attest they were saying this a long time before that.
1800s.
But you teachers, and this is what you need to look for, you need to help your teachers to, rather than have a classroom of a collection of individual students all learning math processes, to have a classroom as a math community. Let's learn this together. Let's figure out the answer together. Teacher is the sole authority versus verifying with logic and math and evidence. A teacher can be wrong, the teacher can present a hypothesis in math, and students can verify it. Is it right or is it wrong? Memorizing procedures to capturing mathematical reasoning, mechanics of finding the right answer, we talked about that. For conjecturing, inventing, and problem solving. And math is a body of isolated concepts versus math is connecting all of the processes of math into one big whole. So that's what this book, that's what they are saying.
let's see, people don't wanna do this route. It's faster to do this route, just get to the point, let's not, cause this takes too much time.
Well, most books are written here, certainly. That's where the books are.
It's also math, of all the disciplines, is still that institutionalized instruction that has been happening when you're in the factory model of education. Reading is sort of getting away from it, you know, science has always been, I think, labs or whatever are supposed to have been labs and whatnot. But math has always been institutionalized, and if you look at your math teachers are good mathmaticians. I was not a good mathematician, so I understood the need to
They
explain.
become math teachers because they like it.
Yes, and they do the 3 examples. I mean, my whole career was the 3 examples, then sit down at their desk, sit at your desk and work the problems in the book. And the teachers teach the way it was modeled for them. So I'm not sure that they don't want to do it this way. I just think it's a shift for them in everything that they've ever experienced in their own math life.
Okay, I forget the guy who, I think it's Pullum, who presents this, but it's called the idea of force fields. And the way it works is that teachers like to see equilibrium. They like to see the status quo. And so if you want them to change, then you're gonna have to change part of that status quo and make them uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable enough to change. And there's 2 ways you can do that. You can push them from one side, or you can pull them. And in terms of constant pressure, this needs to be the push. Every lesson, every time isn't gonna always be that way. But in your faculty meetings, in your staff development meetings, this is the push. And interestingly enough, all of this works for all the other classes too, not just math and science. But.
Yeah, I just need some clarity with number 1. I think I understand, but I'm not sure if I fully. Can you kind of give some clarity on collection of individuals? What does that mean?
Just a classroom of kids, a classroom of.
Each student is isolated and doing their own thing. And here, do this problem, and they're all doing the same problem individually.
Okay.
Which happens a lot. And sometimes needs to happen. But then there's times when the whole class needs to work on a problem. Together, put their brains together on the same problem and figure it out. Or small groups of class. And this is part of culture thing too, and teacher has to create a learning environment, a culture that says we're all in this together. You need help, I'll help you. And student to student. Okay, going on. Okay, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek way to look at things, but not. You may agree with this or not, but this I was thinking, well, what? How is a math or science teacher different from a regular teacher? If you look, all of these things on the left are great things. They're good things. Do we expect more out of math and science teachers? Talk to your elbow partner about that. Do we expect more? We expect this out of all our teachers. Do we expect more out of math and science teachers?
I think all teachers should be able to use the levels of questions.
I think every class is going to have their own discovery. They may not be exactly right.
There's a degree to which the expectation, you know,
Okay, raise your hands. Did you come to agreement in your elbow partner pairs? If you and your partner agree that we do expect more out of math and science teachers, raise your hand. Okay, we have 3, 4, and everybody else against.
It's a different set of expectations. What we're talking about with this is, we talk about math and science, and we talk about the world, and we talked about bringing order to it, all of that today. But we expect the math and science teacher to bring the world, the real world, into the classroom through a created activity. You know, whether, if you're looking at English or social studies, you can rely a lot on imagination. You've got the materials in front of you, they're pretty handy. So the expectation in terms of these type of activities, the inquiry and the bringing the work, that part is a different expectation than teachers have been, than has been required of them, I think. That part of it's different and more demanding than to, yeah, to,
Okay,
when
so
you
why
say,
didn't you raise your hand?
well, I guess.
Because we're
it's a
saying that
difference.
it's not there yet.
Yeah.
It's not there, it should be.
So right now, you don't expect more,
We don't.
Right.
but you should.
We should, yeah.
But we want
we always
more.
have in science.
But if you look at science
Not
labs,
so much in math. Math was more stand and deliver. Science, we've always had to do labs, bring in specimens, all these
But why should
activities.
Kind of more
And now we're grabbing the math people and, hey, y'all need to come do some of this with us because it's great for learning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my perspective on being in the classroom all these years.
but why shouldn't our math classes be called math labs?
That?
With the concept that we're going to now, it's like, as Dr. West says, is now the math classes need to have space to have it. I mean, it's,
Well,
Yeah,
if
well,
we
you know,
expect more,
on the
we'll
college
start
level,
calling
what is a math lab? It's tutoring on the process. It's really not a math lab, it's a math tutoring session. But, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, good to think about.
I
Okay,
think teaching
tell me
science
what-
is twice as hard because we have all of the labs, setups, takedown, it's a lot more work.
Yeah, it requires some advanced planning. Okay, so what is higher order thinking? Hutz. Talk to your elbow partners. Define, come up with your definition, and everybody else is going to embellish it. So, your definition of what Hutz is.
Semantics.
We went with, and you can chime in here, we were talking more like Bloom's evaluation, synthesis, those higher levels, so I don't.
Analysis.
Creating.
Okay,
Creating.
so we got evaluation,
Synthesizing.
Creating something new.
that's synthesis. What else?
Anal-
That it?
Synthesis and analysis.
Analysis.
And I think connections has to go in there somewhere too, being able to connect the knowledge that you have to something else in the same discipline or maybe even cross-discipline connections.
That's synthesis. Okay, how about y'all? What would you add to that, higher order thinking?
Us?
Yeah,
We
all
said-
y'all.
We just said, it's applying prior knowledge and experience to solve a problem. Which we think kind of covers all of that, because application is like.
Okay.
All y'all.
I
What
think
would
prior
you add?
knowledge, she says something important, that is prior knowledge is an important part of higher
Okay,
thinking.
prior knowledge.
But integrated, it's not just prior knowledge, because prior knowledge is retrieval. It's prior knowledge integrated with new knowledge,
That's synthesis.
and then making connections, relationships, and telling why.
Okay? No, you started. Anna, you were with them?
Yeah, we
Oh,
did
okay,
three.
so you three.
We went we went directly probably to the Blooms, the evaluation, we talked a little bit about ambiguity that you discussed earlier, that has to be, that's within the process to allow students to do some that there are often multiple ways of coming at solutions.
Okay?
And we also say the depth, going in deeper of the student's knowledge, depth.
Being able to justify.
What's another word for that?
Enrich.
Okay.
And is justification, do you think, being able to justify this is
Yeah,
why
that's
I
evaluation.
think what I think evaluation,
Okay, and there's some conversation, which is more, how should I say, which is more difficult? If you recall, Bloom's is a taxonomy, and he, by orders of magnitude, he stacked which is the most, the least difficult to the most difficult cognitive function. And he originally put evaluation on top. A subsequent,
Visiting.
actually one of his former pupils says, no, we need to put the synthesis on top.
We actually have a session on training on some newer versions with Hess and Costa. And what Ben was talking about with Costa's level, they've combined knowledge and comprehension, and then application and analysis and synthesis and evaluation together. So they've combined them, but they've also sort of reordered them. And
Yeah,
these
Costa's
are
level of
the
questioning is
handouts that we
very
use, and this is Hess's that
Didn't
explains it a little bit more.
Put something out about that also a few years ago. He has a new.
Oh, he reworded it,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's different.
That's the one that's called the depth of
Okay,
knowledge.
I'm surprised nobody put critical thinking up here. What happened? No critical thinking?
Oh, well, isn't that?
I think that's all
That is
part
what
of
higher
critical
order thinking
thinking
It
is.
is higher order.
It's critical thinking.
Okay, now, please remember, we're talking about buzzwords, and one of Dr. West's pet peeves is accuracy and precision in language. So, how would you define analytical thinking versus critical thinking?
What's the difference?
That's my question.
I think of it in terms of categorizing. So you have critical thinking. Well, one way to think critically about something is to evaluate and justify what you're doing. And
Okay.
then
I put it there, sir.
another way to do critical thinking is to analyze it and make opinions about it, or,
Okay, no, they're different. According to Bloom's, analysis is right here. 2 orders of magnitude more difficult is evaluation, making judgments, criticizing, critical thinking. That's according to Bloom's, even according to
So
his-
he uses critical in terms of criticizing. I think we have.
What is evaluation? It's making judgments.
Yes,
What is
yes.
criticizing? What is critical?
Right.
It's making value judgments.
So then for me, critical also means important and highly valued. I mean, I think it's that word critical. What was the definition for critical? Sort of like Ricker. What is the definition of Ricker, really?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so my contention is that there's a reason why they're separate right here.
Yes.
And in terms of problem solving, you have to do all 3 of these. Problem solving is actually a process.
Mhm.
It's not a thinking skill. It's more of a process. It's a heuristic, step by step. What do we do? Okay, and the first step is always analysis. What is the problem? What's
What do we-
there? Take it apart.
Mhm.
See what's wrong. Then actually synthesis is coming up with a solution. So evaluation would be what needs to be there, what's missing, what else do I need to know? Is it valid, is it not
We'll get you
valid?
copies.
Once they've done those 2 steps, then they can put things together with the prior knowledge and come up with problem solving skill.
Yeah, but then after evaluation, then you have to get into the application. Once you figure out the problem and how to fix it, then
You need
How
to
do you do
implement it. There you go. Okay, so higher order thinking. Why? What's the big deal about higher order thinking? Why don't we just tell them what they need to know?
Okay, I'm just gonna tell you that at my private school, my first job, the parents paid $22,000 a year for their kids to go to school there. And a parent went to complain to the head of school that I was doing problem solving in class. And why did her kid have to do that? Shouldn't math be the instruction of process until kids on their own are able to do these things?
Okay. What'd you tell them?
I didn't, she went to the head of school to tell her that.
So why even mess with that? Isn't our job just get the knowledge into the brains?
I think a lot of times what we're facing now is students don't know how to make decision in the everyday world of just some common sense things because everything has been fed to them and given to them. Their parents have done it or whatever it may be, and that's why their parents want you to do it for them because they're doing it. But then they make poor decisions as they grow older because they've never had to.
Okay, so we're fighting tradition. Jen and then Mark.
So, one of the things that we want our students to do, and I think every teacher wants their students to be able to think for themselves. Figure this out for yourself, because I'm not
And
gonna
that's
be
starting
here
to
all
be
the
an
time
issue on
telling
the
you.
STAR test. Starting to be, it hasn't
Right.
been.
But
No,
when
but she's
I
right.
teach you a process, and then the problem changes, you're lost. So understand and think about, and then be able to do that, and it's not, when somebody teaches you a process, you have one way of thinking about it. When a child understands something conceptually, they can see it maybe from a lot of different angles. When you teach them the process, or not the process skills, but Bloom's or whatever you want to call these higher order thinking skills, they're able to look at things in a different way.
Okay, so
And
I
that's
asked the
something that serves
question,
them.
and certainly I'm fishing. Hopefully Mark will give me the answer I'm looking for.
I don't know, but one of the reasons why I like this programming is because it really helps our teachers learn the standards and TEKs that the kids really need to learn. And the TEKs use this language and will tell you in 5th grade they need to be at this level. And we've had, I think, some conversations also of, and you made a comment earlier, 3rd graders. 3rd grade teacher can say, my kids are doing 6th grade math. That's fine and dandy, but are they learning the 3rd grade material? So I think just from a very administrator point of view, why do we need, one, we're held accountable in making sure that our kids are learning at those appropriate levels. I think we have to put some trust in the committees that make the standards so that it's developmentally appropriate for the kids, and that's where we have to get them. And if we get them there to that 3rd grade standard, if it's at analysis, so that in 5th grade, it's gonna help them with that next concept that's coming up.
Well, I think the STAR test did a quantum leap in terms of separating what they need to know in this grade versus the preparation and what they have learned in other grades, the process. But
I want to just bring up one thing. Marzano has high yield teacher strategies and he has high yield student strategies. Has anybody here done Fundamental 5? Or know what that is?
Is that like the Daily 5?
No, it's a way to collect data about your teachers, and it's 5 things that should be happening in classrooms for the best results. And one of the things that we did when we were collecting the data, and we would look at the graphs that come from the data collection, because you just walk in a room and it's a data collection thing to talk to the teacher about. Your high yield teacher strategies are about 5 times greater than your high yield student strategies. And so the way I explained it to my staff is you're doing all the work. You are up there teaching your heart out. You are working hard. You are doing so much. You are doing a lot. But guess what? The students, it's not high yield student strategies. Is there a time and a place for high yield teacher strategy? Yeah.
Okay.
What this program does is everything that's happening is the teacher gives the background knowledge and then as a guide on the side for the majority of the lesson. So you're having a high yield teacher practice, but then you add on the high yield student practice.
okay, so that comes back to my original question, and thank you. You get a star on your forehead.
Do I get a ticket? What, am I gonna go
Okay,
to drawing?
there you go. The reason why we do HOTS is because it helps students remember. if we train the student to think in this way, they are gonna remember the content. When the students are physically, actively engaged, they are going to remember the content. If we just talk to them and tell them what they need to know, they're gonna remember maybe 3 or 4%.
There was a teacher years ago, I think she's Yvonne Baldier, I wonder if she still
Yes.
has this sign above her door, but she had this sign that says, I get paid to ask questions, not give answers. I get paid to make you think.
And looking at the STAR items, when they first came out in science where they were dual coded, I said, you can't do that. That's contrary to fundamental assessments, two items in this thing. But when I started looking at it, I thought, this is a great thing, because the dual coded items, those students don't understand that question if they have not done the lab or field, the hands-on activities with it.
Okay,
Those
so
questions are hard.
when we have higher order
Good.
thinking, we need to make certain considerations, and we're changing the way students are thinking, we're changing the way teachers are thinking and teaching.
Read this.
One of the considerations is that you really can't do higher order thinking if they have nothing to think about. So they have to have some knowledge. They have to have something in there to talk about. Now, if you have to get that knowledge into them in any number of ways, but higher order thinking requires something to think about. Second thing is that typically it requires more time on the teacher's part before the lesson. Yes.
On the on Tuesday, we had the conversation of, we talked about meeting the kids where they are versus teaching on that grade level. So I'm trying to make a connection to this of, if the kid doesn't have certain skills readily available, are we just spinning our wheels? We're trying to teach them a 5th grade concept when they're ready for a 2nd grade concept. So I'm trying to make a connection to that in that conversation that we had the other day.
And what is the answer to that? The magical word, differentiation.
Right. So, and one of the connections that I've been making throughout these 3 days is, as we're looking at higher order skills, 21st century skills of problem solving, critical thinking, communication, all that kind of stuff. If we are doing the math science integration and the hands-on and the group work and all that kind of stuff, then we're building the communication skills. We are building the teamwork. We're building the problem solving. And kids have to have community experiences, small group experiences over and over and over and over. They have to be able to practice it all the time, because that's how we build the social emotional skills. Those are caught way more than they're taught, I think. I think when you start teaching them directly, like you do that for the behavior kids, you're like, dude, you cannot do that, you have to do this. But the rest of it is like, they watch the grown-ups, they watch their other peers, all that stuff. And in order to problem solve and evaluate and make decisions, you have to include the emotional piece. I mean, you cannot make a decision without the emotions coming into play.
What emotion do we want? Enjoyment, fun,
Well, for
anticipation,
learning, that's nice,
excitement.
yes.
Okay,
You can also
so-
you could learn by disappointment and
Frustration.
humiliation and frustration.
But if it comes from themselves, not from us. Yeah, okay. So,
Yes, hopefully we're not doing that.
students are not trained to do this. They don't know how to do it typically. Several years ago, I was involved in a program, pre-freshman engineering program, and we had written a grant to Ford Motor Company, and they have a wonderful curriculum. You should check it out, Ford PAS, P-A-S. But anyway, that curriculum is very much inquiry-based and very much integrated, math, science, and business. And I brought in 5 students from 5 different schools, from 3 different school districts, and we had 30 kids. And we gave them one of these problem-solving inquiry lessons the first week, they didn't know what to do. They had no clue what to do. They just sat there. We had them in, groups of 4 or 5 kids, and we said, okay, you need to design a soda bottle using, these parameters. You want the cheapest one, you want the most value, you want whatever. And they didn't have a clue. And it was a 6-week program, and it was amazing to see after the first week of them not knowing what to do, and then the 2 teachers that we had hired to help them, they, held their hand, showed them how to do it, said, oh, okay, well, you should think about this, and what about that? And then at the end of 6 weeks, we gave them a totally open test, kind of like what I did to y'all, to come up with the strongest plastic, come up with tests on how to find out what's the strongest plastic and strongest metal. And you wouldn't believe the incredible processes that they came up with to determine what was the strongest metal. And they had no, how should I say, they were given some, some basic information about different types of plastic, different types of metal, but they weren't given any information about tests. And they went out and found the tensile strength, they found, they created their own tests, bending and stretching and chemical, and it was amazing. But it can happen. The first time it's not going to be easy. Kids are going to just sit there. They don't know what to do.
Well, and that's the group, the teachers will say, I'm doing group work. No, you just have 4 individuals sitting at the table.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to work as a group, and I think the elementary principals know with guided reading, when you want to have an effective guided reading model in your classroom, you spend a lot of time training students. Science teachers are actually the experts of training kids how to get their materials and get them out, and because they have 45 minutes to boom boom, so.
Okay, the other thing, they must have a high level of trust, and in this consideration right here, think about your teachers and PLCs. What's different?
The students must have a high level of trust, or the teachers?
No, students have to trust each other.
The teachers have to trust
Do any of
that
these
this is
things
gonna
right here,
work.
do they not apply to teachers too?
Yes.
We're going to be revisiting that in
On
a
that
second.
math community, that's part of the math.
Okay, some of the results, whoops, just going to go over those real quick. In the long run, even though it takes more preparation, more effort on the teacher's part, higher order thinking means more permanent memory. More of that information gets pushed into long-term memory because they have the capacity to associate it with an activity, with a real live hands-on event. It establishes patterns of thought or habits of mind, and it makes teaching and learning a lot more enjoyable. I need to share real quickly a brain-based research that happened. If you're familiar with London, the city grew organically. There was no master plan, and so you have streets that start and stop and turn and then start up again, and then it's a rat's nest of streets. And you have buses that follow certain routes, and then you have taxi drivers. And some ingenious researcher said, well, I wonder what the difference between taxi drivers and buses are, or bus drivers were. And so they actually put them in an MRI and measured their brain. What do you think the results were? Talk with your elbow partner.
Obviously bigger brain capacity for the kids.
Sure.
They have a variety of things, they've got so many other things they have to learn.
Well, they can veer off their path too, so if there's a bet, they can change some of the.
That's the biggest part, that's the biggest element.
Well,
They have to learn. They constantly have to learn.
There's a video, I'm trying to remember the history channel. There's a video.
It's like, what do you mean, what's the entrance? She goes, lady,
Yeah.
there's no way. I'm
Okay,
gonna-
so,
every place.
A bus driver would need to have a tremendous amount of knowledge about the route that they're going to take, right? What about a taxi driver? They'd have to know all of it. Okay, Now, according to Kane and many other brain researchers, there's two types of memory. There's a locale memory, and then there is a taxon memory. The locale memory, just think, what were you doing September 11th? What were you doing, 2001?
Teaching.
Okay, think about that situation. Think about what you remember. You probably, if you're like me, you have a vivid memory of colors, people. You could count the number of people that were there. You could, you know exactly where you were standing. You know what time of the morning it was. You know where the sun was coming in. We have a vivid memory of that. Why?
Because of our emotional
Emotional
response.
connection.
There you go. It was traumatic.
It wasn't
Okay.
positive, but it was emotional.
Yeah, it was definitely emotional. That right there is an example of locale memory. You all remember what you ate for breakfast, right? Or what you didn't eat for
Today,
breakfast. Today, okay. But did you have to work on that? Okay.
But if you
What?
asked
Think
on
about
September
your.
11th, I would.
Think about a celebration that you recently had, a birthday or anniversary. You remember what happened there? Did you have to work on that? It's just there, right? You remember, right? At least.
She's still thinking.
No, okay. You should. But anyway, and the reason why is two things. You got an emotion, and you have a locale, a place, an event. Those two things right there are locale memory. And then you have taxon memory. Taxon memory is, it's a list of things you have in your pocket, or what you carry in your wallet, or, you know, periodic table, or the math tables, or the multiplication tables, or just things that, pieces of information that you remember.
Trivia.
Phone number, your license number.
Yeah, license number, telephone number, you know, kids' birthdays, things like that. That's taxon memory. And in the past, taxon memory, well, has always been the testing side of things. You know, how do you do this? What is the name of George Washington? You know, things like that.
George Washington.
Now it's shifting a little bit. It's still not there yet, but for example, when you go to a new place, a new location, let's say you go to a conference to a city you've never been before, and okay, you got your conference sessions done, and you're going to be adventurous. You want to go outside, explore the city a little bit, and have lunch. What do you need? You're just going to walk outside and.
Your GPS on your iPhone.
Okay, you could use your GPS.
The
What will the
concierge.
GPS do? You say, okay, let's see, Benihana's or
Restaurants,
yeah, restaurants. What is the GPS going to do? It's going to show you a
Directions.
a route.
Or a route.
It's going to show you a route on how to get there. Let's say that conference is all week, and you want to go back to that same restaurant, or you know of a restaurant close by. You going to need that GPS still? Why not?
You've been there, you're more familiar with the area.
With what's the word? The locale, right? You're familiar with the locale, and you have a general idea of how it's set up. Okay, but the first day, if you didn't have that GPS, would you be able to get back to the conference?
Nope.
First time I was in San Antonio, I walked around the Alamo for probably half an hour because I didn't know where I parked my car. I got lost. Okay, I wouldn't do that now because I have a general idea. My wife would disagree, but I have a general idea of how it's set up. Okay, so you got these taxi drivers, and you got the bus drivers. So which ones have the biggest brain?
Taxi.
Taxi driver. Okay, and I think the reason is obvious. They had to use their brain more because when there's a road closure or they have different people telling them, well, I want to get from here to there, they have to figure out the best route to get there. And the bus drivers, they didn't have to do so much. They memorized the route, and they just followed the route. Yeah, okay, so we've got these two types of brain learning. And they both have a reason. We need lists of things. We have this huge memory device between our ears, and we need to use it.
Where is visual memory? Is it in your taxon memory?
The process is different. Taxon memory requires repetition. Locale memory, instant.
So that would be visual then?
So it depends. It depends. I mean, you can look. I mean, if all taxon memory was instant, I could look at that and I'd be done. I'd have it. But if I want to learn what's in here, I have to use the taxon. Unless a creative teacher finds a way to make this come alive. And then it becomes locale. Now that's when you have the history teacher showing up in full battle dress of the Civil War. That's when you have the science teacher coming dressed as Dumbledore, or the Mickey Mouse wizard. They're creating memories. They're creating locale memory opportunities. Okay, which memory system does higher order thinking use? Locale or taxon?
Both.
Locale more than taxon.
Okay, so assuming that they've used taxon to get the regular skills and knowledge they need, then that is driven home through the higher order thinking and locale memory systems. Okay, so with that in mind, we have half an hour here.
It makes me wonder if I'm gonna remember the cosine of theta is x divided by a.
You might.
I'm wondering if I'll be able
Yeah.
to remember the math that went behind the activity that we actually did.
There you go. I'm going to remember it because I had to look it up and say, oh, what is that? Yeah? Okay, y'all know the 5E model, and that's for inquiry. Okay, and we are going to skip ahead to this. Okay, I've asked a couple of teachers, or a couple of you to download this software,
Did you download it on
and
your phone?
I'm going to get out of this.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
I think she's got it on her.
Warm.
She loaded it and then.
Become my mother.
Okay.
I don't even know if I can tell you, you become more like her every day.
Department came up with a bridge building contest, and the bridge building contest included a piece of software so that everybody was using the same thing. And so over the years, this software has been developed, and it's really awesome software. And it's easy to use on one side, and it can be very complicated to use on the other. It goes as deep as you want, elementary through college even. But the whole idea is that you're supposed to build a bridge with the least amount of cost, whatever that is. The strongest bridge for the least amount of cost. Okay, so there's several different types of bridges. So I need you and your group to go through the different types of bridges. Select what kind of bridge you want. Do you want the bridge to be lower? Do you want a abutment in the middle? What do you want it to be? A suspension bridge? You want it to be what's the other kind?
Strong bridge?
Anyway, you have half an hour to experiment with this, and then we're going to go to lunch.
Go next.
Okay?
Hey, I lost my page like that.
I'm going next.
How can I get the setup with this?
Oh, you just went go. Okay, well,
You're participating in what, okay, so next.
You should be able to
right
pull
there,
it
that
up.
one.
There you go.
Let's put you in the
So now
middle
we
between
have
the
to
two
decide what
guys.
we
Yeah.
want.
Right.
I would let you do it, but I.
You want to get in the middle so they can see what you're doing there?
Well, you do it.
We're waiting for Ms. Waters to
Okay.
We did the end of eighth grade, we did the build the bridges with the two kids.
Is it working?
Had the accountants and all
Remember
that
this
kind of
is
stuff.
connecting?
Oh, well, we can get in anyway.
Password.
Okay.
Let's
Here.
just post in the middle.
What's the mean, what,
Okay, hang on, first we
Bring it up
have
higher,
to,
bring it
so
higher,
first we have to look at all the different kinds
Oh,
of
a
bridges.
little bit, just a little bit.
You need a camera?
Well, every time it goes to sleep, it disconnects. So you're gonna have to connect it
no
again.
cable languages?
Did you download it? No.
No,
yes,
because I could never
So you're
get
saying
connected
put it
into the
in here,
internet.
here?
When, remember it came up, and then when I went, it said, it gave me a red line and said it wasn't a good site.
2 pier spans,
Yeah.
So Jack River
because
Banks
we can't do any more than 2,
excavation.
like it has, that's
Are you sure?
How many is that? And then put in a button twice.
Where do I put the abutment?
Right there.
the, oh, okay, interesting.
Okay, well, tell you what,
So we want
it's
this
more
one?
important to be looking at it right up there than trying to download it,
Yes.
so.
Duh.
Okay, so,
Oh, that's
Abe,
fine.
Denise, and Robert,
Yeah, we're
you
giving
got those
directions.
4 back there that are helping you too.
Okay.
All right, I'm expecting to hear
It's 8 on 3, we should dominate.
There you go.
8 on 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So what do we want?
We just wanna beat them.
No pier? Yes, pier. We want pier.
Try with a pier,
Two
see what it
pier
looks like.
spans, right?
Right.
And we want those raised.
Is the art department mathematical?
Okay, here. We have 24 meters, it's way
Oh,
up there.
it's.
That's
Now
pretty
we're
big,
going
that's
to
gonna be
go-
costly.
Okay,
Do you
I'm
want
gonna
2
put the
cable
X's on
languages?
Yeah, let's go ahead and see what this
I
is.
went to, I carry my weight.
What was your estimate?
Running the cable through the ground should be
One
done.
and 0.2, I think, something like that.
If
You run it through the ground, you got space.
Alright. Aren't those cables supposed to be somewhere attached somewhere?
Straight.
Keep going.
Go on, go next.
So now,
Please notice also you got design tips on the right there.
That could help.
It tells you, gives you some ideas there.
Interconnected triangle, see?
stable truss is one that is composed of interconnected triangles.
Okay, now because of the selections you've already made, your options are limited.
Yeah, we're screwed. You just ran our cables over the road. You're knocking cars off the bridge now.
Okay, all right, here we go.
That is
Start
one
over.
long thing, and it's their strength and shorter
Do we want arch abutments?
If you do
Just
those,
on a mess
if
with
you
it.
do
No.
bridges that have these things.
Check it, see what happens. What does it look
Yeah,
like
let's-
if you do that?
Along the side.
Oh,
Like those things on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Where's our
and
math
those
teacher?
tires.
Cables,
Put another
cables
pier.
down to 81,000.
That's what's causing them,
So,
that's,
okay,
they're
general.
absorbing the
81.
weight.
Increase the
letting
site
down or
cost,
something
tend to
like that.
reduce the truss cost.
Excavation and supports, not steel trusses.
So what we have to do is we have to figure out,
The truss cost, try to find
I think what we do is we start with going, not worry about the cost to get a bridge that works, and then back down, you know what
Why
I'm
would
saying,
we
like modify.
I mean, you don't have to do that.
Okay, look here now.
2 trucks, 3 trucks?
What does it have to hold and how do we know?
2 trucks.
Cause
Wait,
then
how did
you'll,
you get
you'll
the
say
2
ready,
trucks
and
to
then
be
the
able to
truck
get
will
on
go
there?
over it, and you'll see what happens.
We're advanced.
Let's go ahead and go through it, and when we see the truck,
We don't
See?
even want, we don't want help, we just wanna see what happens, huh?
There you go.
we'll see our,
Crash and burn.
we'll do what the state does.
Trial and error.
Okay, there we go. All right, so now what am I doing this way?
Okay,
Next.
languages,
Put another
okay.
pier.
That's a lawsuit.
Go next, go next.
Your,
Okay, we
your
have
money that
no
you just saved on the front end
Oh,
is
yeah, what
gonna
happened to
triple
that
up on
beam?
the back end.
What happened to the beam in the middle?
Okay, that's right.
We did more excavation.
You can check on each one and see
Let's
what
go
they
next.
look
Oh,
like.
finish, go ahead, put finish.
Dry up the
No,
river
no,
bed,
no,
that'll
no, you
help.
need to, you need to select one of those templates.
We have to do this one,
Oh.
or this one,
Oh.
or
Try
this
that.
one.
What to do, the cost each
I don't
one.
know.
Let's see what
Nothing.
try.
Now they
Let's see
hinge
each of them.
Nothing.
Huh?
How is she getting into all this?
Look at all of them, see what they look like
See who's the
first.
smartest
Yes.
one.
Three hinge.
Configurations.
Who's the smartest guy there?
Go next.
Do we want a hinge one?
Look at it.
Let's see what it looks like.
Oh.
What's the difference with hinge? I can't even see the difference.
It's only one
The
and
angles
it's
are different.
They don't even look different to me.
Yeah, they do.
There.
Well, choose the name you like.
Hey, put on your glasses.
Now am I done?
Yes.
Yes.
Finish?
Lawsuit.
There we go.
Okay, so your job is now build that bridge. The way you do it,
Cause that's what we just got the equipment, now we gotta,
We just built.
you got
Move it
the
up.
plans
Yeah.
done, now you gotta build it, so you got the
Okay,
tools
we want
right
this
there.
one. We want this one.
Drive that truck.
Okay.
Just wanna see what happens.
That just points at things, that's erases,
Oh, okay.
that built.
This built.
Yeah.
So what am I building?
you wanna pull
Put it
these,
on the spot.
Okay, so first of
Okay.
all,
you gotta pull
You
these.
go right ahead now. There you go.
This portion of concrete.
look at this here.
Good one.
You're set
I
up
like
with
that.
carbon steel,
Better.
hollow tube or solid bar.
Solid bar.
And you got different thicknesses.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna need
Okay,
two trucks.
and you can either make it go up and down like that automatically. So carbon steel, you got several choices. Pick what,
I don't even know what
pick what you
quenched
want.
and tempered is. It's like I was thirsty and quenched my thirst.
Okay, so what size do we want? 180 by
You're
180?
supposed to Google which one of those three
Sure.
guys was
Why
smarter.
is it the
You know.
81,000, why is it 94 now?
We're a team effort. Get your
You
Google
gotta
thing
connect the
ready.
dots.
They don't give me
That's all you do.
much access.
Oh,
Let's fill that pier with some concrete.
I don't know.
They already did the concrete deck
Oh,
and the asphalt. So you're
Oh,
just
that's nice.
creating the support beams.
Now it's 126, 135.
Do you know what we're doing here?
Just connect the dot.
I know y'all are probably
153.
just copying us.
Hey, the cost keeps going up when you're doing that.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
Amazing.
because we're building it.
Yeah. Did we do any of those?
Where's the
other
cost?
things?
I don't
Have to
even
check.
Listen, if I'm
See the
driving
green
across
cost
the
where
bridge,
it says
I want
status?
no
See, the
cost.
cost is way up at the top.
Let me
There
see.
we go.
199,000 already.
Where's the status?
Oh, okay.
And our budget was
That's the people in
81,000?
Minnesota.
So why did it
No,
tell
that
us
was the
81
initial
earlier?
cost. I don't know what our budget was.
So very blown
We're the government, we can.
We were at $81,000 budget, now we're at 99,000.
No, we saved money on
Toll
the bridges
bridge,
we
yeah.
built for
We have to make a
ourselves,
toll
it's just for
bridge
other
to afford
countries.
That doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
We need some,
The steel
we need some
is-
triangles in there to strengthen it
That
up.
has already cost too much money.
We really have to have some triangles.
What
It's
do
not
you
gonna be
think
very
about
strong.
that?
But why can't I connect the dots here?
I don't know, do you want Rob to come over there?
Okay.
You gotta draw the circles.
He's smart.
It won't work, it's only, well, you know, okay, so I must need to do
So,
something else.
Why don't you just click the dot there and try and click it on.
Yeah, you can put your circles anywhere you want.
Maybe you claim just to be architect and not foreman there.
Oh, I keep adding dots.
Come on, Tom.
But where's
Come on
my
out.
little menu?
Let's refer back
I
to
thought
our
that's what we
architect.
did
He's
when we
right
picked
behind
that
you.
arch for
All right, here we
the
go.
other one.
I'm gonna do
Knows
triangles.
everything you need to
I
build the
try
bridge
to,
you wanna
yeah.
build, and
Okay.
then try to figure out how to build it.
It's your turn.
How to
So
do-
then-
well, what
Triangles
did you
under
use?
lips.
The tool thing?
Yep.